Today for our leadership video, I'm filming from a remote location in far northwest Colorado. This location is part of a series of mountain ranges called the Flat Tops. It's a stunning view from here. You can see all of Colorado and probably into Wyoming from here. This one particular trail, despite the beauty of the Flat Tops, the main feature of this particular trail was about a 3-mile hike up, about 2,000 foot ascent. You come to this location called the Devil's Causeway. The Devil's Causeway is a span that connects a set of mountain range here to the flat top mountains there, and the reason it's called the Devil's Causeway is it's about 3 feet wide. It's a terrifying scene from here, and actually even from here it's scary. I can look down, it's a good 500 plus feet to the rocks both sides. And I wanted to shoot from this location because today's theme is how fear impacts the issue or area of spiritual leadership. You think about in the Bible, there are 300 times in the Bible where God says, do not be afraid. And oftentimes he says this to people who are in the midst of being involved in a particular area of leadership. God tells Abraham, do not be afraid. God also tells Joshua, do not be afraid. You might remember Joshua chapter 1 opens with multiple times God telling Joshua, have courage, be courageous, do not be afraid. Now think about that for Joshua. He's taking over the leadership from Moses. Moses had been 40 years as the leader of the nation of Israel, and now suddenly Joshua is going to take on that particular area of leadership. And this must have been terrifying to Joshua. Now there are certain things where fear is a good idea, where fear is good. It's a good help for us. It is good to be afraid to step off these rocks here. That's a good fear. That's a healthy fear. There are healthy fears like that. But in the area of leadership, in the area of spiritual leadership, I think there's a lot of fears that keep us from leading. For instance, I think there's a fear of failure. It's like, well, if I lead and it doesn't go well, I'll fail at it, I'll feel terrible about it, or I'll harm the group as a whole, or damage the unity of the group, things like that. I think there's a fear of investing so much into something and then having it not turn out well, where we get our heart broken or we get disappointed or disillusioned with it. I think there's a fear also that other people will not follow, that we'll try to lead and other people will reject that leadership from us. And in the area of leadership, one of the things we have to do is, assuming that God is in it, assuming that God has put us in a spot to be leaders in our families, in our communities, in our churches, involved in the sports world and sports teams, that God has put us in those places for a reason. And assuming that God has put us there, he will empower us by his Holy Spirit, and he'll lead us and guide us. And what happens is, I think there's places, at least for me, where I feel like God is leading me to lead in a certain way, and I get afraid. I get afraid of the consequences. I get afraid if I lead in that way, people will get upset, or people will get mad, or they'll reject the leading. And so because of that, I think sometimes fear holds me back or holds people back from leading. And so I wanted to do this video from this spot because, first of all, it took a little bit of work to get up here. In fact, if you can see, I'll show you from the video here in a minute, back down, there's a couple of lakes, and I got to get all the way back down to the base of that second lake down here. And it is steep. This is a hard climb. This is the hardest climb I've ever done in Colorado. But it's not just the steepness and not just the 2,000 foot ascent, but there was places that were scary, where the drop-off was serious, but none as scary as this. And I will tell you that I watched a couple of people cross this causeway, and it is scary. What I'd like to do is to encourage us with the words that God gave to Joshua. Only be strong and very courageous. And God says that to Joshua as he takes on leadership roles. So as you're going to lead in your family and your church, is to have courage. Have the courage to do the right thing. Have courage to lead out. Have courage to lead by example. Have courage to encourage other people. Have courage to fail. Have the courage to try something and go, wow, that didn't work, but I'm going to try again, or I'm going to try something different now. That call to courage, the Bible, over 300 times in the Bible, we're told to be courageous, to not be afraid. You remember when Jesus is approaching the disciples on the Sea of Galilee, he comes walking to them on the water, and they're terrified. There's a big storm. And Jesus tells them, do not be afraid, it is I. And in that moment, the disciples go from fear to now being able to trust Jesus as he gets into the boat and he brings them to safety. So my desire is for my own life and for the lives of those in my church and in the baseball program is for us to take on roles of leadership where by example or by words of encouragement or by leading out in ways of work ethic or by taking a particular approach when troubles come or trials come or difficulties come to say, hey, we're not quitting here, we're not fearful here, is to be brave and to be courageous. So that's the call I think God has on all of us, is to not be afraid, but to have courage. And especially in the area of spiritual leadership, God has called us to courage. God has called us to spiritual courage.